Hi, gang. It's Kale.
And Patrick.
Coming up on today's episode, we take a deep dive into hyperspace and discuss Patrick's recent voyage on the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser with special guests Justin and Jack. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Patrick, when your husband makes love to you, it's my face he sees.
Oh, my.
When your baby's hungry, it's my breast that feeds him.
Oh.
Look at you. When push comes to shove, you can't even breathe. Kazuki!
Oh, is that from The Hand That Rocks the Cradle?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Why do I know that? What's missing in my brain that I was able to identify a quote from a movie from, 91 or something?
Yes. Well, that's because it is an iconic film.
Oh,
but
my gosh.
Also, no, we'll talk about it later. Do my intro now.
Oh, yes, of course. It's not iconic like that, unless you like Star Wars. Kale, drink the blue milk English.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also got that reference, so we're starting off well.
Do you know what creature the blue and or green milk comes from? Great. Okay. Off to a great start.
Oof. Yeah. Never mind. See, but we were doing good, and then you had to go and be shady. Ask me a question you clearly knew I didn't know.
That's fair. That's fair. I believe it is the bantha. The bantha is the
bantha. Nice.
Yeah.
Sabantha.
The bantha.
So Hand That Rocks the Cradle is one of Roger's favorite movies. And
that absolutely tracks.
I know, but we've watched it a couple times. But Roger all the time will do that quote where she goes, "Okay, I'll just take my baby and be on my way." And then the mom goes, "Your baby?" And she goes, "My things. I'll just take my things and be on my way." It's so demented, but how amazing.
That movie is I don't know, at equal parts horrifically bad and amazingly wonderful at the same time.
Oh, but absolutely. I mean, sometimes even the face that she makes when someone turns around, it's so diabolical that it's it's sort of it's like the Citizen Kane of female thrillers.
Very, very that.
So how have you been?
Oh gosh, how long do you have?
Well, you and I never try to keep it short, so just
I know.
Go right in, honey.
It's true. Although it's going to be a longer episode, we already know it because we have some special guests coming on who I'm very excited about. But it's been. Here's what I'll say. It's been a long week. This week I have learned the effectiveness of, how I always talk about, give people grace. You never know where they're coming from, what their week's been like, what their day's been like. But you have to give
this is a read.
No, not at all. Because I'm turning it back on myself because it's not all about you, Kale. I'm turning it back on myself to say that, you don't know what kind of a week you're going to have. You don't know what kind of day you're going to have. And you have to give yourself, the emotional availability to navigate those waters, right? And it is a practice that we are doing all the time. For instance, this week, I'm just going to be very open and vocal about it. It's been a really rough week at work. It's very demanding, very stressful.
Right.
So that's been, quite the ordeal. And then on a high note, I got I lease a car. And so every 3 years you get a new car. My new car came in. And so that's fun, very exciting. And then the same day, so a lot of our Tweedles know, and you know very well, that 2 weeks ago we lost our little Ella, and
I do.
Yeah, and we got her ashes back this weekend. However, the vet clinic did not do the little paw print, the clay paw print for us for Ella that we were really looking forward to having, because I was going to do maybe a tattoo of her paw print, and they just didn't. They forgot about it and didn't do it, and so it was one of those things that something happens and you don't expect it, and it just can crumble your whole day.
Absolutely.
And so it was we had to say goodbye to her again. You know what I mean? A little bit.
Right.
That's a dramatic way of saying it, but it's true for me. And so
no, it absolutely is. And also it's I mean, unfortunately we all make mistakes, and it's sort of an honest mistake to make. 100%. It's just a very important mistake to make. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come on.
So
what's their number?
No. I'm not complaining about it by any stretch, but it hit me very hard, and I just,
of course it did.
All this to say, give yourself the availability to like grieve things, to go through things and have a really bad day. And it's okay. Because now today I get to talk to some of my very best friends in the world, you and JT, well, JT too, but I'm not talking to him, and Ryan, not talking to him today. But I mean, Justin and Jack, and it's going to be a great day. So I'm looking forward to that. So roller coasters happen.
Yes, roller coaster of a week.
What about you? How are you? Where are you coming from? What's going on?
So I had a work conference in Orlando this week. It was the single busiest week of my life, it feels like. I mean, absolutely insane. There were some highlights. I actually, my boss on earlier in the week had actually treated me to a sort of a half day at Typhoon Lagoon, which was my first time I'd ever visited.
I've never been either.
But it was honestly truly awesome. It was absolutely, I had a really, really great time, and it's good to sometimes get to bond with your coworkers and bosses outside of Zoom in the workplace. I have to say Zoom because I work from home. But
fair.
and then there was also one day where I was feeling sort of a little bit overwhelmed by everything, and there was Patrick Kozuki on the phone, and you sort of talked me off the roof of the hotel. But then also I have to give another so I'm not going to go into detail about what I do, because I'm definitely the GDTD Chandler Bing. I don't think any of you actually know what I do for work, in spite of me trying to explain it a billion times. A
transponster.
Yeah. Yes. But I actually, by pure chance, ran into a listener of the podcast who was also attending the conference. And yes, and Drewby, Coast to Coast on Instagram. Drew is his name. And he was it was such a treat to meet him. We got to talk sort of about his professional journey, and I got to pick his brain about it for a little while. I also have to say, not to objectify him on the podcast, but if you looked at his Instagram, you will know that he is a fitness enthusiast. I feel like that's an understatement, because never in my life have I seen every muscle on a person's body through a 3-piece suit. So if you are looking to be inspired on a fitness journey, please go to his Instagram, because there I was standing next to him, shaped like the actual letter L, but it was but all in all not a bad week, just stressful. And sometimes when you happens. It does. And when you have those moments of where you don't have a minute to sort of sit down and decompress and think about what's my next step, one foot in front of the other, sometimes it can just be a tiny bit overwhelming. And you were there for me, and thank you very, very much.
Well, listen, two things, like, just to build on that, like, what I mean by when I say, like, give yourself the availability, like, in my head, like, mental wellness doesn't necessarily mean always. It should and can, going to therapy and like doing all the work, but it for me, it just means having the vocabulary and knowledge of like, what am I feeling right now, navigating that, of like giving yourself the allowance to feel what you're feeling, and then figuring out like, okay, how do I, if this isn't serving me right now, how do I get out of it? How do I do something else to like make that feeling
absolutely
into a positive? Yes. So anyways, all that. And then the second thing I was to say was, Drewby Co. Is it Drewby Co Fitness now, or what? I can't remember what his name is.
I believe
on
it's
Instagram anymore.
I believe it's Drewby Coast to Coast. 2 is the letter, the number 2.
There it is. Yeah. He and I have chatted quite a few times on Instagram because of the show, and it's like responding to stories that we've done and everything. Seemingly, I have not met him in person, so you've had the pleasure doing that.
He's a
wonderful
gem.
person.
Yes,
you can
absolute
tell.
Gem.
You can usually tell sometimes just between even just Instagram conversations of like, oh, this is one of my people. This is you're
totally
part of the party. You're invited to a picnic.
And so this was my company's actual. So I was a staff at this conference because it was my company actually putting on the conference. And so I was sort of like standing around and sort of monitoring and facilitating. And then at one point he walked in, and I saw it. We sort of like made eye contact the moment he walked in, and I was like, that's probably not, because my job is affiliated with nobody that I know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was like, when I saw him, I was like, what? And then,
That's so funny.
but I had the opportunity to chat with him, and it was really, really awesome. And so shout out to Drewby Coast to Coast.
Well, great. And a longtime listener as well of the podcast. So
very much so, yeah.
That. Well, so we've had some weeks, you and I, and here we are doing our favorite thing to do is chat about life in Disney together.
That's right.
I love it. Well, speaking of, we've been doing this now, Kale, for 5 years.
It's funny how time flies, because I literally feel like we only started like a year ago.
Well, that's because you have not put in the work, but that's okay, Kale. That's okay. You will. But what occurs to me is that like I've now officially been friends with, or at least have known you and Ryan and JT for 5 years now, which is incredible to think about. That's a long time.
It is.
To be in contact.
If you think about it, like 2.5, 3 of those years were during a global pandemic. And so
exactly.
And so it's like that time, it sort of doesn't exist to me. Yeah. Because like when I think about like things that I did, like if you think about it, I think February or January of 2020 was when we did Marathon Weekend, right? That seems like it was only a year or two ago. It absolutely does not seem like it was going on 4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years, it's like
that's insane.
Wild to think about. And so some of you have already started sending in. We've been soliciting this for like the last year, it feels like. Questions for our 5-year anniversary episode will be a different episode. We're going to mix things up a little bit. We're probably going to skip the news and just chat about the last 5 years, but we want to know your questions for all of us as individual hosts, as a group who are doing this podcast, for a Questions and Peter Pantsers episode. So please send us those questions via Instagram, DM us, leave us some voice memos at info@gaystothed.com, leave us an email, however you want to get a hold of us, and we will be sure to answer your questions. The whole episode will be dedicated to you, our Tweedles, because you're the reason that we're doing this for 5 years. Otherwise, we would just be talking to each other on Zoom, which we would do anyways. But now we have you all as hostages as well. So
hostages.
Thanks for that. Well, okay. Well, what else, Kale? What should we get into next?
I think we should do my favorite segment, which is I'm celebrating.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about This Week in Disney History. But okay, great. I'm celebrating it as.
Do you want to do This Week in Disney History?
No, I'm just kidding, because I know it's your absolute least favorite.
No, I do. I enjoy it every single week. Okay, so this is what you all are celebrating. At Andy Heath Puppeteer, my 50th, getting married and going to Disney World. So spoiled. Well, that is a lot. That is a lot.
Well, full disclosure, behind this is what you miss when you're not part of the Patreon family. So we were having our August issue of the Happiest Hour on Zoom.
Yes.
And that morning, Andy Heath, Puppeteer, sent me a DM and who's like, I'm so sorry I can't be there, but here's the deal. I just got married today. And I was like, what? In no way should Gays Do the D be on your radar on the day of your wedding.
I disagree, but but I understand.
Fair. But his then, I guess, I don't know if they were fiancéed, but longtime partner had been planning this wedding celebration over his 50th birthday. So they got married to his surprise and then went to Disney World as well. So
that's absolutely
congratulations.
Amazing. Yes.
And thanks for thinking of us on the day of your wedding.
Absolutely. Yes. Congratulations.
Moving on, we have at Sean Cruz saying, heading off to my 9th year at Burning Man. Sean Cruz, did you start going when you were 12? Like, I feel like...
No, first of all, that's insane. Also, I do not think I realized how many friends I have that go to Burning Man every year until this year.
It's huge.
But this year it seems like all of them are at Burning Man. Not one of them invited me because they know I probably would not go. But
I don't know if it's for me, but full disclosure, I don't really know what Burning Man actually is. And I think that's part of the thing is like no one really does until you go.
Same. Well, in Atlanta, Burning Man means something very different. And so...
There's an ointment for that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. At Joe Bethan, my daughter Katie starting college. I like her and love her and will miss her so much. Well, I'm very glad you like her and love her. Also, where is she? Where is she going to college? What is she planning to study? And that's amazing. Congrats to Katie. Amazing. And congrats to you.
I know. I can't imagine having a kid and then shipping them off to college. Like that emotional roller coaster must be a wild one. So congratulations to you.
Listen, if I ever had a kid, they're going to boarding school and I'm moving.
They're not letting you have a kid, Kale. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. All right, moving on. At K Dirksen 13, celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary and heading to Disney World the next week. Here's my favorite thing. Thank you for celebrating your love, but I love that they also add the addendum of and Disney World.
Right.
It's like,
yes,
maybe we can celebrate them separately, but no, Disney takes a little bit of precedence over the wedding anniversary. But congratulations.
Congratulations. I know. I love that they do that too. It'll be fun. Like finally having my gallbladder out and then watching Luca.
Right. But also, my 10th viewing of Luca.
Right. Right. At Colby_Daniel228, new job and new school year, and Disney Classroom is set up.
Ooh, we need photos immediately.
We do need photos. We do.
Need to know. What's the theme? Is it like an Incredibles classroom? What is it? We need to know.
Ooh. That should be. We should do an Imagine Queering on Colby Daniel's classroom. What do we think it looks like? Yes.
It's true. But I have a feeling that Colby Daniel absolutely wins. Is a designer, and we are trash.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, Colby. Moving on, we have at just.in.time_15, celebrating a staycation, just a little break from work. Ugh, so needed. Get that in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well done to you.
Justin 8. That's amazing. At Hibdonde.
You said it right, Kale, because look what you're about to say next.
No. The GDTD host learning how to say my Insta handle. Yes, you absolutely. That's worth celebrating. Also, It was super nice to meet you at the Patreon happiest hour on Earth.
It's a party, everybody. I'm telling you, we have a really good time. And at Hibdonde, I have to reach out to you, by the way, to get you your mug. That's my bad, Hibdonde. So stay tuned for that mug heading your way.
So his next celebration will be finally getting my mug that I
being able to drink some tea,
right.
Because I had no mugs before.
Right.
Now I do. Oh, I love it. Moving on, we have at Dilly_bar, celebrating getting full-time status. Congratulations. A full-time performer in the parks. We need to celebrate you in the parks and get some photos of you at some point.
Yes.
On vacations and meet up for some drinks.
We absolutely do. Last but not least, at Stefan Runs the Capitol, getting married to my husband on September 3rd, celebrating a trip to Cali and Disneyland.
Tacking on the parks once again with that love celebration. Which one's more important? We need to know. No, congratulations. Where are you getting married? Are you getting married in California? Are you going there for the honeymoon? We need more information.
Yes, more information, please. And then also send us pictures.
Yeah, send us photos. All of you, send us more photos. We will post them, I promise you, unless you tell us not to. But we love celebrating you all year long.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Celebrating is my favorite segment. Please keep celebrating. Please keep sending those in. This is the highlight of my week for me.
It's so needed. It's so fun to do. We just love it. Absolutely.
Very much so.
Love it. All right, where are we going next, Kale?
We're going to get into some listener feedback, which I just need to say only happens on episodes that I am not on.
What do you mean? Oh, the feedback for the episode?
Yes.
Untrue. We had somebody write in about their crybaby moment last time.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We sure did. Yeah. Okay. Okay. You want me to take this?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. In response to our Haunted Mansion review, at Mr. Kevy Cavs, a gym, at Mr. Kevy Cavs, I enjoyed the film and your review. I thought it was a fun way to spend an afternoon, but I did feel like it was made for Disney Plus rather than the big screen. They definitely gave us a lot of nostalgic winks to the ride, but the overall plot was a bit weak, and the cast had more than a few features that were just not needed. I love that the main character was an emotional and vulnerable man as much as he was heroic. When he cried, it wasn't the one tear rolling down a cheek thing we get from some films. It was a real emotional expression. Also, I loved how it trusted children with more mature subject matter around death and processing grief. I just wish we didn't have to waste time on Owen Wilson's bizarre character that somehow needed a redemption arc crammed in, or the completely throwaway Madame Leota backstory. Love Jamie Lee Curtis, but that accent was a choice, and I just kept wishing Jennifer Tilly was floating around in the ball instead. but definitely a lot to enjoy, especially for ride fans. Still waiting on a film that captures the heart of the ride story and exciting new adventures the way Pirates and Jungle Cruise did. Very good feedback.
Ooh, that's quite the review.
Yes. Yes, good feedback. I also, I feel like I'm a diehard Pirates fan. And so I feel like I'm always overly judgmental of the films that are based on rides. I did enjoy Jungle Cruise, but to me, it was not on like the caliber of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, completely different stories, completely different rides for sure. But yeah, I think they hit something really golden with Pirates of the Caribbean and just haven't been able to sort of recapture that spark again yet.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like we do a very good job on this podcast of calling the mouse out when we need to. And it's sort of like, Disney sometimes will hit a niche market with something and then they say like, this is the new direction we're going in, similar to all the live action adaptions happening, right? And so instead of just like creating pirates, having that sort of be like, oh, this is something amazing, it's sometimes maybe it's just not necessary.
Well, that, or like to Ryan's point, he says this a lot, and he said it at the Haunted Mansion, and I actually very much agree with this, is that not every movie has to have, or can have, the budget of a Pirates of the Caribbean.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you do what you can with it, and, sometimes the result is to everyone's liking, and sometimes it's a mixed review, like the Haunted Mansion was, so there you go.
Completely. Well, thank you for the feedback, Mr. Kevy Kebs.
Thank you so much, Kale. Are you ready now for your favorite section of the podcast?
I sure am. Are you gonna is there a quiz? Or have you given up at this point?
No, I'll never give up on you, Kale. I always like to make sure that people know that you don't know anything about Disney history. That's my favorite. It's my favorite part.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so the first one will not have a quiz involved. It is a birthday, though. So 106 years ago, on August 28th, 1917, comic book writer Jack Kirby was born in New York City. Now, Kirby was regarded as one of the most innovative and influential comic book writers and creators of all time. In fact, if we had some comic book fans listening to us right now, they automatically already know who Jack Kirby is. So just the few of the characters that Kirby created include the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America.
Very nice.
Yeah. I mean, like the biggest comic books of all time were created by one person.
Right.
Yeah. Well done. And fun fact is that Jack Kirby was listed as a Disney legend posthumously, I believe, maybe 8-ish years ago. So also a Disney legend.
Do you think that'll happen to us?
100%. Yeah.
I do too. 100%. I think about it all the time.
Posthumously, though, for sure, Disney is going to off us first, and then they will give us the legend. They don't want us on stage receiving that award.
It's true. They definitely don't want me on stage. Shorts are not appropriate for children.
No, it's a liability, for sure.
No, absolutely. And that has been This Week in Disney. I'm just kidding.
Nope. Here comes the quiz. All right, are you ready, Kale?
I'm ready.
All right, I'll get through a section of it first, and then so listen carefully to this, and then you'll have a question.
Is this one of those? Is this one of those where the answer is in the question?
It could be. It could be. So 34 years ago, on August 28th, 1989, two individuals left their imprints in the cement outside of what was then the Great Movie Ride within what was then Disney MGM Studios. Now, of course, it is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and Hollywood Studios, respectively. Less than a year later, one of these two individuals will pass away, leaving Disney in a legal hot mess with licensing. The other individual lives on today in an attraction within Hollywood Studios, which opened in 1991, a year after the death of the first individual. Kale, who am I talking about?
I do not know. I want to say that one of them is Audrey Hepburn.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Correct. These two are inextricably linked.
Oh, like forever.
Forever. And one of them is featured in a attraction within Hollywood Studios that is still open today.
I don't know. I try not to focus on like death. And so
do you want any other hints, or do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah. Keep giving me hints.
Let's see. Disney in 2004 would then acquire a majority of the company that these two were involved with?
Maybelline?
No, they were not born with it. It is not Maybelline.
I do not know.
These two individuals would be Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog.
Okay. Yeah, that... I was... For some reason, my mind was on a completely different track.
Nowhere there.
I was.
Okay.
There's no way I would have even have gotten to that one.
Amazing. So yeah, of course, the attraction would be Muppets 3D. So after Jim Henson died, because they were about to acquire the Muppets, and then he passed away, and the Henson Company was like, nope, we got to put everything on pause, and so it left them in a huge mess. And then finally, in 2004, Disney did purchase a majority of the Muppets. They don't own every single aspect of their past properties, but they bought them for $75 million, which feels like a steal. I mean, $75 million for all of the Muppets seems pretty intense.
I mean, well, yeah, now, but if you really think about it, in 2004, I mean, I actually think that probably was pretty...
That's fair. I mean, that was 10 years ago, inflation-wise, but yeah.
Well, I mean, because even when we were kids, like, we had Muppet Treasure Island, which is still, in my opinion, the best Muppet movie ever made, hands down. It's absolutely amazing. But there was a time period when we were kids where the Muppets were still very popular and like super, super relevant. And then there was a time where they sort of teetered out. And it's a shame because the Muppets are amazing.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Kale, that was an epic fail on This Week in Disney History by
I'm so
you.
sorry. I'm so sorry. Next time I'm doing This Week in Disney History, and I'm going to ask you that. Yep.
I'm down for the challenge.
Okay, you all heard it here, folks.
I'm ready for it. Okay, so we have to move on because we have two very special guests joining us on the podcast after the news. But we do have one more thing to get through. It's our giveaway, which we've been talking about for a while. We have been wanting to do this episode for about a month and a half now, but we needed to wait until the timing was right for the Galactic Starcruiser. But we do have a giveaway, which will be featured on our Instagram story immediately following the recording of this episode. So when I was on the Galactic Starcruiser, I purchased a Chandrila Starline Halcyon ship patch. So something you can put on your clothing, on your backpack, on your book bag, maybe something that you purchased at the GDTD store. Who can say? Who can say? The patch, like I said, does feature the Halcyon ship, which is the ship that you're on the Galactic Starcruiser, and it can only be purchased on the Galactic Starcruiser in the gift shop there. And it will no longer be available for purchase ever again once the Starcruiser closes. So this is a unique item that very few people will ever have because it did not exist for more than a year. So
you don't know how bad you want it or need it.
You don't. It's actually really cool. I love it. It's a really cool. I'll put the photo on Instagram. So Kale, tell the children at home how they can enter this giveaway.
Well, you can head on over to our Instagram at GDTD Podcast. If you aren't already, follow us, like the post featuring the giveaway, and comment by tagging 3 of your Disney-loving friends, and you're entered to win. To obtain a second entry, repost our post and tag us at GDTD Podcast, or add it to your story and tag us. Entries will be accepted until 6 o'clock p.m. on September 7th. Patreon members are already entered to win. If you aren't already a Patreon member, you can still join before September 7th, and you will be automatically entered to win this drawing. The winner will be announced on our September 11th episode celebrating our 5-year anniversary. This giveaway is in no way affiliated with or sponsored by Disney or Instagram.
Well, thank you, Kale. Yeah, as Kale said, as many of you know, when you are a Patreon member, you don't ever need to enter one of our giveaways. We automatically enter it for you. You can still enter for additional chances to win. But if you aren't already a Patreon member, you can go to gazetothed.com and click on donate. And for as little as $1 recurring a month, you too can be part of our Patreon family, which gives you special entries into giveaways like this.
And honestly, it's so much fun.
It is. We have a lot of fun. And more to come. Like we're always building our repertoire of what we do. So come on and join us over at gazetothed.com and click on donate. Let's see. What else do we need to talk about? So that, as we said, will be happening on our next episode. We will contact the winner once we have announced it, and we'll get your shipping information, and we'll send that patch your way.
Yes.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about before we go to the news, Kale?
Let's go to the news.
Let's go to the news. Kale, read all about it. We've got some more Desantis news to talk about this week in the news.
News, talking about news. They say that it's faked, but that's just half-baked. And that's in the news.
Thank you for the intro.
You're welcome.
I like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have two news stories to cover. One is Desantis and one is cocktails. So we'll start with Desantis so we can end with some cocktails for a cause.
Let's go.
So we're back in it again. So here are the bullets. On August 14th, Desantis basically told the press that he was done with the legal battle with Disney, saying, quote, "We've basically moved on. They're suing the state of Florida. They're going to lose that lawsuit." Okay. End quote. And when he was asked what he would say to Bob Iger, DeSantis said, "What I would say is drop the lawsuit." So it sounds like he wants to be done with this.
he yes, you know, this, we even talked about this briefly, and I know that in order to not heavily focus on this too much, I'll try to keep it short. No. But we talked about this briefly in the past, and you and I both said 90% of this was all sort of for political gain. We knew that, we were aware of that, and it's clear now that he realizes that he sort of went too far. Like, he sort of put his foot in his mouth. He is not going to win this.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's classic backtracking.
Well, and it's not a story that's tracking with anyone who would be a potential voter for him.
Absolutely not. No
one is going, "Oh, you know who I want? The guy suing Disney or the guy involved with Disney." No one cares.
Well, I assure you that there's not a Republican family at dinner sitting around the table talking about the Reedy Creek Board of Directors. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that's not a thing that's happening.
Correct.
So, of course.
Correct. Okay. So all that was on August 14th. So fast forward to August 22nd, Glenn Gilzayan, the administrator on the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, resigned from the board as it was discovered that his position was a direct conflict of interest with his other position as head of the Florida Commission on Ethics. Ironic? Yeah, that's what that is. Which that position comes with a $400,000 a year salary. So Gilzayan was appointed by DeSantis himself into that role, even though Florida state law does not allow public employees to serve on the Government Ethics Commission. Come on, guys. What on earth?
So yeah, just for a little peace of mind, that is also the salary of the President of the United States. So that's, Google it.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yes. So I mean, it's no surprise that he was like, which one do I choose? The board of this failing thing, or stay on with this and get $400,000 a year? So that's what he did. He resigned. So, but before he stepped down from the board, he did announce that employees within the district which would no longer be receiving annual passes as part of their benefits package. So, before this new district, the CFOTD, took over the Reedy Creek district, employees were given annual passes for their family, for themselves and their entire family, immediate family, even into retirement. It's just one of the perks that Disney gave them. The board now has decided to strip all of these employees of that benefit and instead replace it with a one-time payment of $1,425, to be very specific. So now here's a quote from a firefighter within that district. Yes, they are also stripping these benefits from the firefighters who are working there. The firefighter said, quote, "This benefit is intangible and generational. We have retirees, some of them here today, that work their entire careers and work and earn this benefit for the rest of their lives. This allows me to bring my children to the parks and eventually my grandchildren." He continued on saying, "When the district changed hands last year, we were told that our jobs and our benefits were safe." End quote. So in response, the chairman of the CFOTD, it's the CFTOD, said the new cash payment would benefit employees who are single or who have small families. But then he said that it would actually be a worse deal for anyone with a larger family. Cute. Real cute,
right,
guys.
Because that's how math works.
I mean, what on earth? I mean, this is just another example of, like, they didn't strip anything else. They just stripped a benefit pertaining exactly to Disney. Like, it's How more clear could they be in their evil plot?
No, well, and the whole justification of this, right, was that it was that was tax dollar,
like going to save there money some, or whatever. Yeah,
right. But I don't think that they realize. No. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't do that to people.
No, you absolutely can't do that.
No. Well, I mean, so this goes into another interesting, this bleeds well into this because they're trying to save money by doing that. However, also on August 24th, the CFTOD board met to discuss hiring a law professor under the name Donald Kokan, who is to research the former Reedy Creek district. Now, Professor Kokan will be paid $110,000 just for phase 1 of this research project, which will include a 50-page report, quote, identifying whether and what legal and constitutional authorities and infirmities and structural strengths and abnormalities exist within the governance of the former Reedy Creek Improvement District, which is now, of course, the CFTOD, and associated governance regimes, and from the statutory or regulatory privileges granted to specific corporate entities. So, what this means is they're now paying $110,000 for research they should have done before even changing hands and stripping Disney of the Reedy Creek district. So, what they're basically saying is, we're not even sure if what they were doing is legal. We said it wasn't, but we're not actually sure. So now we're going to spend more tax dollars to back up our claims just to make sure that we're sure. What on earth is happening, Kale?
I know.
Okay, so it gets even better. So also at this meeting, the board announced that they had plans to spend an additional $5 million in the next year to fight Disney in court, which is very weird if you consider at the top of the story that Desantis alluded that he was no longer interested in fighting Disney, and yet they have earmarked $5 million to do so within the next year, which they don't really have because it's not their money.
No, they absolutely don't really have it. Also, it's funny to me that they take pass holder benefits away from these employees, right? Because and then here we are about to be in a $5 million hole.
Yeah.
But
yep. So that's what's happening with DeSantis and the new board. So now that we've discussed with DeSantis and this new board, anything else to say about that, or should we move on to our more uplifting story?
I mean, here's the deal. I think that this is something that is obviously dwindling out, and I'm actually glad that Disney hasn't come back and said, "Oh, we'll drop it if he does." I like that Disney is sort of standing strong and being silent and being like, "No, you need to know we're ready."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
And so I actually have to give them sort of kudos. So yes, let's move on to a happier story.
I'm into it.
This September 14th, the Edison in Disney Springs will host their September Mixology series, this time with a connection to a local charity. A portion of the proceeds will benefit the Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando, whose mission is to educate, shelter, place, and heal pets and their families with compassionate, responsible care maintained to the highest professional standards. This is amazing.
Oh, I agree. I love seeing stories like this. I do too. Charity events. It's my jam, for sure.
I'm not a huge fan ever of when we call bartenders mixologists, but it's fine.
You would have hated the Halcyon then, which we'll get into in the main segment of what they call them there. Yeah.
Yes. With your ticket purchase, you'll have access to specialty cocktails with the Meowhito, the salty Chihuahua.
Wait, did I spell it wrong? Is that what you're saying it that way?
No, it's Chihuahua. I always think it's funny to say Chihuahua. But the salty Chihuahua and the non-alcoholic Best Buds cocktail with cream of coconut, coconut milk, cinnamon, blueberries, and lime. You also have access to the specialty food stations with Hamachi ceviche tacos, chicken Caesar salad bite. What? A salad bite?
I don't know what that means. Is it like a cube that's like a compacted salad? What's a salad bite? Someone let me know.
Yes, please let us
like
know.
A leaf. It's like one
Right.
romaine lettuce leaf.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah.
Crouton on
with
it.
a crouton and like a string of
Right.
Parmesan.
Yeah.
Okay. Kushi oyster and pearls and vegan chili cheese potato skins. There will also be a silent auction throughout the evening with prizes that include restaurant and hotel packages around Disney Springs, Kennedy Space Center tickets, private mixology events at the Edison, and more.
I love and more. That's my favorite.
I do too. I love. But wait, there's more. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. on September 14th. The event is 21 years and older. Tickets are $85 per person, and you can upgrade to a platinum ticket for $40 additional, which gets you an upgraded option of food and drinks, like a 1-ounce pour of the 12-year Whistle Pig Old World Rye whiskey. Old World Rye whiskey.
There it is.
And an A5 Wagyu pastrami and focaccia.
My nickname in high school was Whistle Pig. Fun.
I swear to God, I swear on everything I was going to say it. Verbatim, I was going to say my nickname in high school was Whistle Pig. But my current name is Old World Rye Whiskey.
Yeah. Yep.
So
no one can say it. Yep.
to purchase your tickets, go to exploretalk.com and search the Edison September Mixology for a cause.
This sounds fun. I wish I could go. I love events like this. We'll have to send Ryan.
I'm
to something
going.
like that. Are you really going?
Yeah, no, I'm not
Oh,
going.
I was like, oh, great.
No. I love pets. Hate mixology.
Fair enough.
And that's in the news.
I like it. I feel like if I was a drag queen, I think And More would be a really good drag queen name. Don't you think?
Yes, I absolutely think so. I also heard one the other day, Miss Ma'am.
Oh, I like that one. But can you imagine?
Yours?
Welcome to the stage and more.
Yes. Welcome to the stage and more.
Good job, us.
Missology.
Ooh, see? Now you do like it. Missology.
Now it's my fave. Hey, Patrick.
What up, Kale?
Why don't you tell me about our special guest, Justin and Jack?
I would love nothing but to tell you about them. But first, let's chat just real quickly about what we're talking about today, and that is a trip report from this past July that both Justin and Jack and I took on the Galactic Starcruiser, the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, which was such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to record it right after because we wanted to, let Justin and Jack both come on and talk about their experience, and calendars didn't align accordingly. And so, but now, finally, here we are today, about a month later.
Yep.
We're finally giving the download. Yeah, absolutely. So, let me start by asking you, Kale, what do you know about the Galactic Starcruiser, really and truly?
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm the perfect person to do this interview because I truly, very, very, well, for the most part, I feel like there's not, I think a lot of people are so enthralled when they actually do get to visit that there's very little like camera, like photos, videos, and because everybody's just sort of taking it all in. And so aside from like the occasional video or picture, I truly don't know anything. So every reaction today that you're getting will be completely real. Unless you talk about your role in the hay with Chewbacca, that I was expecting.
Listen, yeah, absolutely. That wouldn't, the height difference alone would make it impossible. So we should say that if you do have kiddos listening right now who don't want things spoiled for them, if you yourself are maybe going on the Starcruiser and don't want anything spoiled for you, maybe skip this episode until after that experience or shoo the kiddos out of the room, because we're going to talk about what the experience is, and with that, we're going to try not to ruin much of the magic, but we are going to talk the realities behind the Starcruiser. So just a full disclosure there before we get into it. And also, some quick background on the Starcruiser itself. So, the Star Wars-themed hotel, as a lot of people remember, was announced way back in 2017 at the D23 Expo, which seems like 1,000 years ago, right? And then fast forward 2 more years at the 2019 D23 Expo, it was then revealed that this was going to be a fully immersive experience on board what they are calling the Halcyon, which is a Star Wars-themed ship that you get to board for 2.5 days, basically. Now, the Galactic Starcruiser was supposed to open in 2021, but, obviously COVID happened, so it instead opened in March of 2022. Reviews since then have been pretty mixed. They've been very positive from guests who have been on the ship itself, but there's been a lot of negativity from a lot of people who have not been on the ship itself, which I think we'll get into a little bit later, and a couple of guests who have not had the best experience on it, which is understandable. But of course, they've always, through and through, since before day one, they've had this huge conversation and backlash around the ticket price for the Galactic Starcruiser.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, trust and believe. That was like the number one question all of our listeners had, and we will be addressing it for sure on the podcast with our own honest opinions about it. And then, as a lot of us remember, we announced it here on the podcast earlier this year. It was announced that the Halcyon would close its doors at the end of September 2023. So, as of this recording, it'll be closing basically within the month of September this year, which is kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. Yes.
Yeah, just over a year of operation. So, all that being said, Justin and Jack, 2 dear friends of mine, are coming on the podcast to talk about their experience, me to talk about my experience. Kale's going to interview all 3 of us. We're going to interview each other. It's going to be a party. Justin and Jack, actually, this was their second time on the ship, so they have a unique experience of experiencing the entire program, I'm going to call it.
Yeah, and what it's like,
twice.
Taking a child.
Me being the child. Very well done there. Very well done there. I mean, that was kind of how it was like. I was like the little show me. I don't know. Where does food come from? It's absolutely amazing. Justin and Jack. Justin has been a dear friend of mine for a while. We met during Run Disney. We've been running friends ever since then. We've done most of the runs together since we did our first one a couple of years ago for the first ever Springtime Surprise is when we finally officially met and ran those races together.
Nice.
We've just been attached at the hip ever since, and Jack, his extraordinary husband, is a big Disney fan as well. Maybe not quite as big as Justin, but he is along for the ride and has some great insights as well. So, all that being said, Kale, are we ready to bring on to the podcast for the first time Justin and Jack?
We are ready. Justin and Jack, welcome.
Yay. Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
We're great. We're good today.
Awesome. We're so glad that you were able to join us today.
Yeah, I love that caveat. We're good today.
How about today?
Every day is different, but we're today and we're happy to be here.
Of course. So yes, thank you so much for joining us. So to start off with, all of the GDTD co-hosts, we all like to introduce ourselves with a little bit of our distory, if you will, our Disney history. So I will pick Jack to go first. Give me your distory.
Sure. Yeah. Well, both of us are born and raised in Florida. We've grown up in Florida. So my history goes back a little bit further, but I probably could count on one hand the number of times I went to Disney before meeting Justin, and then it sort of just blew up from there. So
I'm the problem.
So, obviously being in where we are here in Florida, we're pretty close, so we get to visit quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, I definitely remember that first time as a kid getting to go. I had, that sort of commercial moment of like, hey, we're going to Disney as a family, and that was back in the day, and that was pretty cool. So. A few more parks have been opened up since then, but a lot has changed. But yeah, I've been doing that pretty much my whole life.
Perfect. And Justin, distory?
Yeah, I wasn't born in Florida, but thank you. Born in New York, moved down here when I was 2.
What's the difference?
And well, I mean, a little bit of difference.
Right.
Spent most of my life in Florida and grew up going to the parks, right? And so every birthday celebration was at the parks. It wasn't having a birthday party at home, but my parents would take me to Disney, and I've been a pass holder since as long as I can remember, even when I didn't live in the state, with different jobs. And so kept coming back and love it and love everything about it. And here we are in the newest experience, and there goes the newest experience. So
yeah, say goodbye to it and hello to it at the same time. Well, I have a question before we get into some more questions, Kale. I feel like this will be apropos for all of us to answer. Beyond a Disney history, what is all of our history with Star Wars, or is there a history of Star Wars? Are you a casual fan? Are you a super fan? Are you not a fan at all? I think that might be a good place to start us out. Kale, do you want to go first since you're...
Sure.
I think I know the answer.
Yeah. So I think I was 23 the very first time that I ever saw a Star Wars film. I for some reason, growing up, it never really was on my radar. And it was when they were releasing all of the episodes in order in cinema. And so the first one that I ever saw was Star Wars Episode 1. And I really liked Jar Jar Binks. And when I left the movie with a group of Star Wars fans, I said, I really liked Jar Jar Binks, and one of them physically hit me. And so that was the only one that I went and saw in theaters. I've since seen all the films, most of the television media. I do consider myself a Star Wars fan, but I was very, very, very late to the game. But my partner, Steve, is a diehard Star Wars fan. Like, I mean, since the movies were out. So, yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Is it because you are built like Jar Jar Binks? Is that what you have, like an affinity for him? Is that why, Kale?
Okay, so we just established that we can't swear, so I'm going to let that one slide. But
wow, fair enough. Okay, moving on. Let's see. I'll go next, and then I'll let you guys answer last, Justin and Jack, because I think that'll be important for the segues into the further questions. I think I've talked about it before on the podcast. I'm more of a casual Star Wars fan, so like a step up from Kale, I would say, but not a super fan. Like, I definitely grew up watching all of the films with my family. It was always like on in the background on Thanksgiving or Christmas, you know what I mean? Like after dinner and stuff, they were just like, let's put on Star Wars. So we did that, and I've enjoyed them ever since. I can't like name all of the characters and the sub characters and the subplots, and I don't like read the fan fiction or the outside books beyond the movies. So I would say like I am an educated Star Wars fan, but not like I'm not a professor of a Star Wars course.
I like that. That.
Thanks. What about you two?
I would put myself on that spectrum of like 0 to complete obsession. I mean, I'm higher on there. I mean, I'm probably more than educated, I would say, but not, you know, and I'm not attending all of the Comic-Cons or anything like that, but
fair.
So it's been around my whole life. So like I'm aging myself, but the first movie came out around the time that I was born, and I have an older brother who watched the very first movie in the theater when it came out and was completely obsessed. And so it was always around. He and his friends were playing with all of the action figures and had all the toys. And then I can remember seeing Empire Strikes Back in the theater, and then the Return of the Jedi. And so I've been watching these like my whole life. And I remember at the very last movie, in the very last scene where Rey is visiting, like where Luke Skywalker grew up, and I had a tear in my eye. I'm like, wow, we've been watching this movie my whole life, and like this is sort of coming full circle. So I'm a fan and well educated on all the things, but like Kale, we have not dived that much into a lot of the TV series. I mean, we more than most, but there's a lot of the content that we still need to catch up on.
Fair enough. And Justin?
Yeah, I would probably put myself in that same spot, right? I haven't been alive the entire time they've been around, but I do consider myself a little bit higher than a casual fan, and maybe not necessarily super fandom. But it is something that was introduced to me very young. And so it's been a part of my life for almost as long as I can remember. And, we watch the movies, we watch the TV shows, we build the Legos that are behind us. I read some of the books, I listen to some of the podcasts, obviously have been on Starcruiser more than once. And so we definitely enjoy the universe, and it's something that is very special to us. And Jack mentioned having a tear in his eye at the end of the last Star Wars movie. But I think, as this podcast progresses, you'll notice there were a lot of emotions as we navigated our Starcruiser experience.
Yeah, I would definitely put you in like casual plus for sure. Justin, like, something to know about Justin is that he definitely is a go down the rabbit hole kind of a person when it comes to something with interest. He'll like find something he likes and then go and correct me if I'm speaking out of place, and then like really dive into it and like explore and come back with a thesis paper around like, here's why this is great. So I'm glad we waited to have you both on for this episode, because you'll have a different perspective than I would, and then definitely a different perspective than Kale would, who's never been on the Galactic Starcruiser.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no corrections needed. I think that is a fair assumption about who I am as a person and the deep dive that I have done in this world. And
very accurate.
Awesome.
Very nice. So this could kind of go for all three of you, even though I know Justin and Jack, you guys had a previous experience on the Starcruiser. What were your thoughts going into the experience? What drew you to want to do it? What were your hopes or worries going into it?
We knew that as soon as we found out about it, and Justin is the first to find out all of these things, right? Like he has like all of the top secret information. And so as soon as we knew that it was going to be a thing, we knew that would be something that we would want to do. More so because it was Star Wars than Disney, but it sounded pretty cool. We knew that it was going to be expensive.
We didn't know how expensive, before it was released. And so that was quite a surprise, I think, to everyone. And that is probably something we'll navigate. But it was something that we knew that we wanted to do. We didn't know when we would do it or how we would do it, but it was something on our bucket list. And we were very excited about it.
Nice. And what about you, Patrick? What did you expect?
A little. So I would say one step down from that level of enthusiasm for it. I think I was incredibly curious about it. Of like this definitely. So Disney, as we know, we sort of covered it a little bit in the intro, getting Justin and Jack into the episode. This was been in the planning for quite a while, and they released it very slowly. So they released that they were doing a Star Wars something, whether it was going to be a hotel or we didn't really know. And then 2 years later, they released a little bit more information about what it was going to be. They didn't release a ticket price though for it. So we knew that we had something as, reporters for Days of the D, right? We knew something interesting was happening around Star Wars. And so that, sparked an interest in me. And I immediately was like, oh, this sounds great. We should do this. We should cover it on the podcast. And then when they released, just full disclosure, like we're going to be very honest about this ticket price because it is a hot button issue with a lot of our listeners. It was steeper than any of us could have imagined immediately, right? And so that sort of priced a lot of people out of it, myself included, of like, well, I can't do this by myself. So that sort of just eliminated any hopes that I sort of had about going on it in the near term. This is a very long-winded answer. But I had hopes of going on it eventually. I was like, you know what? This is going to be temporary pricing. They're going to adjust and maybe it'll go down. Maybe they'll do a coupon day or a pass holder day or something. I'll wait it out. And then it was announced that they were closing it. And Justin, I think the 5 seconds after they announced it, sent me a note. It was like, hey, we really want to get on this again, and we would love for you to join us. And so I was like, well, this is it. This is my only chance. So I, of course, said yes. And I was like, I'll figure out a way to do it. And so I'm glad that I did. But all that being said, I had medium interest in doing it. But because of the price tag, I had high interest in doing it. It had it been more affordable right away, if that makes sense as an answer.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into the experience if we can. So I do know that in space, we are lighter. Tell me, Justin and Jack, was Patrick Kozacki taller?
Shorter.
Yeah.
Well.
If you can believe it.
Yeah, I can't, but I trust you guys. I trust you guys. No, so let's talk about day one. Walk me through day one. What is it like arriving on site?
Oh, yeah. Arriving on site is something that is ingrained in my memory, right? And so you pull up to the security gate and they're like, hey, do you have any scissors or sharp objects? And that's your first experience, but it's all in universe, right? And so they're talking to you. And then you pull up and then you're whisked away. They take your car and you are at the terminal for lack of better words, to get aboard the Halcyon. And so you arrive and you see all of these other guests in costume and in this universe, and you have the blue crew, as they call them, and passenger services out there and talking to you in universe. What planet are you from? And what are you looking forward to most on the ship? And it really just takes you immediately from your car into the experience before you even board. And so before you even go through security, you're in that experience.
Yeah, you sort of dive deep into the deep end of the pool. There's no like warming up. It's
right.
You've got to be ready and on point.
Yeah.
And if you have a backstory, you better know it, because they're going to ask you, and you feel like you're kind of on the spot.
Yeah, we're no longer Justin and Jack from Gainesville. We are Justin and Jack from Yavin 4, and this is Stitch, and he is just here with us. I've got nothing else to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, Patrick, they nicknamed you Stitch. That's adorable.
No, Justin had a really cool little Stitch who was dressed as a Star Wars character as well on his shoulder. Right. But I am just as tall as Stitch.
Right. He was taller than Stitch.
That's right. Just barely.
He's about Porg size.
Yeah, I was able to ride that ride, so I was able to get in, which was great. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I feel like the entrance was not the one place, but one place that like all of the cast members were really incredible right away, for sure. I'm just gonna be blatantly honest. I mean, there was no, like, you were driving into a parking lot basically, so there could have been a little bit more of a reveal or something. That being said, it is still really cool. It's beautiful. The building is like etched with the symbol that's on the ship, and it is really beautiful. But I mean, I feel like there's no hiding it in that you are entering into a building via your car. You're in a parking lot. You're still in the hot Orlando area. So, but the cast and crew do everything they can to make you welcome and to like ease you into the experience. And there are people, you're right, where people were in costume, so you sort of get a knowledge right away of like, okay, there are people in costume, there are people not in costume. So there was already a spectrum of like, okay, now I feel like I'm comfortable getting as involved or as uninvolved as I want to immediately, because you get to see the rest of the passengers right away as you're boarding the ship, which is a nice experience. I feel like it's a nice ease into what you're about to do.
So the experience of like getting into space, how does that happen? What is that like?
Well, they launch you into space, Kale. I mean, they
like quite literally.
You experience 10 Gs instantly. It's no. So you're waiting. I mean, it is the setup is very similar to going on a cruise ship. Like the whole waiting in line, waiting for your turn to get on board the ship.
Yeah, they give you a magic band, an M band, and that's something that we didn't talk about, but you get a magic band that is essential to the entirety of the experience, and it's connected to your data pad before you even board the ship. And so then we launch into space. I'll let you talk about that. So they you're in basically boarding groups, and then so you go into this like space pod, basically. You go into this room that is a shuttle, and then from there you are shuttled up to the Halcyon and get off on board into the atrium from that experience. But that is where it turns completely immersive. So it goes from vanilla to very rich in that experience that you are in like a space shuttle, and you can see the viewports on either side of you leaving what looks like Orlando terrain up into space and aboard the Halcyon, which is pretty cool. I got the second time got good footage of Justin already like tearing up as he's like watching this experience. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's something magical, right? Like you see it, you see yourself being launched in this launch pod up to the Halcyon, and you can see the Halcyon, and then the grabbers grab you and bring you up into it. And you hear the Star Wars music for the first time, subtly, and it just hits you in that moment. And then the doors open to this majestic atrium where it's almost empty, because as soon as you hit that atrium, someone from passenger services is there to whisk you away to your room. And so no one is in that space. So you almost feel like you have the ship to yourself in that moment.
Yeah, it is really
Nice.
beautiful. It's really, if you imagine sort of the section of Rise of the Resistance, for those who have been on that attraction before, where right before the big reveal, the first big reveal that happens when they put you in that little spaceship outside, it's sort of like that. It's like it's very it puts you in an interactive experience where it does actually feel like your ship is moving. You see the digitalization of it is really perfection, I would say. Like they through you can tell already a little bit why it's so expensive to cover the cost of this experience, because of the amount of work they put into it, for sure. Yeah.
So once on the ship, what sort of activities begin to unfold?
For us, the first time, and going the first time, we didn't know what to expect. We avoided spoilers. Justin did. And I told him, I was like, you may know more than I do. I want to go in completely unknowledgeable and spoiler free. So,
I was very strategic about first time experience and not spoiling any of the story beats, but logistically, I wanted to know how things worked.
Right. What we needed to do.
So that we could get the most out of our experience. Because that first time, we're like, once in a lifetime opportunity, let's do this as best we can.
Right.
And then came time to. So
yeah, so you get taken to your room. There's a quick tour of your room and a little bit of like logistics, right? Like here's where you will go and eat. Here's your dinner time. Like I said, it's really set up like a cruise ship and kind of set up in that sense. And then here's the first thing on the schedule. There is a muster drill that you have to go to at a certain time. Feel free to explore the ship. We'll see you at that time. And so you kind of are left to your own. The one thing that Justin did know going into it was do not stay in your room. Always be out where stuff is happening, because you want to make sure you are part of whatever is happening. And it really just happened organically from there. You start interacting. You can interact with your M-band on like the ship terminals and that kind of stuff. And so things just start to unravel from there. And then before you know it, you're starting to get messages on your phone or your data pad, and then things just unfold. It was really, really cool the first time. And you're like, oh, this is already happening.
Right.
Just from interacting.
Nice.
Yeah. And so the data pad itself is preloaded before you even arrive. So 60 days out, you get to see the experiences and the activities that are available to you. And there's a whole slew of stuff. And so most of it is in blue, but there are some highlighted things in orange that are you need to do these things. These are the experiences that are going to be part of your experience to make the most of it. And so that's going to be muster, which Jack talked about, lightsaber training, bridge ops training, your dinner times, your excursion to Batu. All of those things are part of the mandatory things that you need to do to make the most of it. And then you kind of fill in the gaps. We got on board and explored the ship. Priorities are, go to the sublight lounge and get a drink. First things first, and then go to the Crown of Corellia to get your feed bag on, because they feed you a lot and it is good food.
Good food.
Yeah. We something about the data pad. So I don't think we covered it. So it's on your cell phone, basically. It's within the My Disney Experience app so you'll get a special section when you get your ticket for the Starcruiser of a Starcruiser data pad. So it's on your phone.
Nice.
If you don't have a cell phone, I believe they do provide you with something else that you can use. But I think it's just not quite as good and you don't have access to it all the time. So that is something that you need to have. And you're right. So like after we did a room, we got a drink, and then we went to the cafeteria, basically where all the food is. And from there, the story really, they do such a good job, just slowly starts to unfold, right? So one character will just start walking around and you're like, is that somebody on the ship, or is it somebody who's just a passenger, or just one of us? Really, you don't quite know for a little bit who is who on the ship, of whether or not they work there on the Starcruiser or whether or not they're a casual fan. So you do start it entices you to want to start talking to anybody and everybody, because you're like, I don't know. Right. And then it slowly becomes very clear after lunch, after you've had your lunch, and we can talk about food. I think it's one of the questions on there a little bit, but after lunch, then it starts to become a little quicker and quicker, things start to build up where you're like, okay, these are the characters now. There's about 4 or 5 characters. Justin, Jack, you'll have more. I am so bad with names, but it becomes quite clear that these are definitely people on the ship that you want to start talking to. And they'll even come and introduce themselves to you if you look like you're somebody who's interested in playing along with the story. I think something we've said before on the podcast is, as a passenger on the ship, you get to be as involved or as uninvolved as you want to be. So whatever your comfort level is the experience you're going to have. You'll have a great experience no matter what. But if you want to go all in, you're going to get the best bang for your dollar if you go all in, which I would say that we went pretty deep into it, right? I don't know if we didn't do everything there is to do, but it's impossible to do everything there is to do on the ship. But we went heavy into the storyline.
Nice.
We went pretty hard.
We did as much, Patrick, as any one group of people could do.
Yeah.
It's not relaxing. We noticed that,
right.
Coming out of it, we're like, because we went to Disney on the day that we disembarked, and we're like,
first time,
we're tired. We're spent. We don't want to do this. It's an intense experience.
Well, we as gay people, we don't take vacations. We take trips.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Correct.
So we talked about food a little bit, but tell me more about what the food situation is like on board.
It was really good. It's very creative, very in universe. And so there is some stuff that I don't think you can get anywhere else. We hope that will hopefully continue somewhere else.
Make its way into Galaxy's Edge. I don't know. Disney, if you're listening.
There are some things that we were very much looking forward to when we went back the second time that were fan favorites, but it was good. We're both pretty particular about the level of food, I think, and it was really good.
I would say that it's probably some of the best food on property.
Okay.
But arguably so, right? Like, they put so much attention to detail into the creativity of the food, the naming of the food, the presentation of the food, and the quality of it was so good, right? And so something as simple as, what we would call macaroni and cheese, is now tip yip chicken, essentially, with macaroni and cheese. And you can get that at Galaxy's Edge, but it tastes drastically different and drastically better on the ship for some strange reason. And I don't know what it is, but I would have several of those.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really, really interesting, because one thing that Patrick and I always agree on is that most of the time the food at Disney parks, not A1. It's not, Yeah.
No. Kale and I, all our Tweedles know, we are historically critics of the food at Disney.
Very much
Disney World specifically. And I think rightfully so. Disney World doesn't always have their A game when it comes to food. And it makes sense because they're pumping out a ton of food to the masses, and it has to appease the most amount of people. What this ship has the luxury of is they do have chefs on board, and you can tell that are making everything's there. They're making the food. They can craft the food to very specific needs, dietary needs, if you need to. So I have to imagine they could have created anything we actually wanted to if we had asked for it. But you do take what's there, and what's there is amazing. You get, I believe, throughout the course of your trip, you get 2 lunches, 2 dinners, and 2 breakfasts. Am I correct in that? I think so, when I do the math.
Yes.
And it was different each time. So if you saw something you liked at lunch, get it now, because it may not be there at the next lunch, because they mix it up and they change the menus around on you. So you're not stagnant in your selections for the entire trip, which is great.
Yeah, but much like a cruise ship, you're not going to go hungry because everything is plentiful. And even outside of the Crown of Corellia in the Sublight Lounge, you can get bar snacks for free, included in the cost. From 5 until they close. And so you've got that, and then you've got snacks in the atrium all day long, popcorn, cookies. If you're going hungry, you're doing something wrong.
That's actually a really good point too. A lot of people didn't know. I didn't know this going into it. It is a save for the cocktails. So any alcoholic beverages, everything is included on the ship. So all you can eat basically, in the cafeteria during dinner, at the bar lounge. And when we say bar snacks, we're not just talking about popcorn and peanuts. We're talking about flatbreads and
nice
house-made chips and dips and wings, and you could get anything. So it's all included. You could have as much as you wanted. And we took advantage of it too. We didn't stuff ourselves and die, but we were like, why would we not have this? like experience everything we can experience. So
absolutely.
And the other piece is, blue milk and green milk on tap.
On tap.
That's hysterical.
Which is wonderful, right? Like you pay however much you pay on Galaxy's Edge, but it's all included for as much as you want of it.
Mm-hmm. So you walk up to Sabantha the Bantha and just...
Essentially, you just milk. But I am pro blue milk, not so much the green.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so day 2... on the journey is a trip to Batuu, right? To Galaxy's Edge. So how is that different? How does that work? And how is that any different than visiting Galaxy's Edge on a normal day?
Oh, so different.
So very different.
So different. And I was critical of that. And you get to go as early as you want. So again, like on a cruise ship, if you've got an excursion, it's like, all right, we're going to start all aboard at this time, and you've got until this time when or disembark or whatever. And so we went out early. We knew we wanted to do it early and
we
get
got
back
on the first transport to get there
before it gets too hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was far more interactive. I saw stuff I had been dozens of times. I saw stuff that I had never seen only because we were in story and doing missions, and that made it exceptionally cool to be there.
Yeah. So I think, Justin, I'll let you talk in a second. So I think we need to go back in time for a hot second to really explain what you experienced on Batuu. And then Justin, you'll have a lot more stuff to color in for me. So on night 1 is the night that you really, as a person on the ship, right, sort of decide what your path on this excursion is going to be, depending on which characters you hang out with, which missions you accept within your data pad. You start going down. It unfolds before you a path of are you going to be helping the Empire? Are you going to do the path of a Jedi? Are you going to be a part of the Resistance? Are you going to be super neutral and do a little bit of everything? And so at the end of night 1, after you've had this incredible experience with, hopefully you've met all of the main characters on the ship, you then are sort of asked to decide in your data pad what journey you want to take. Whatever you decide that night then is what your missions are going to be on Batuu the next day and for the rest of your trip, basically. Did I set that up pretty accurately, Justin and Jack?
Yes. 100%.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
There's one difference. It's definitely the First Order now, not necessarily the Empire.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, I think there's 4 central paths, and you ultimately make that decision, and your decision depends. Your missions depend on what decisions you make that evening and who you've talked to throughout the day. And we had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people.
We did.
And we're in good with a lot of different people, so much so that people were vying for our attention quite a bit.
It's true. I think I was the only one of the 3 of us, though, who was offered the option to join the First Order as well. I don't think either of you investigated that path.
We were not interested in that, Patrick.
I actually turned it down pretty hard.
You did.
He was coming at you really hard.
He was coming at both Patrick and I, and I'm like, I'm not interested. And Patrick's like, here we go, let's ride.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
I did not get recruited. But
I was First Order curious for sure. Absolutely.
You were more than curious.
Fair. Okay, so that gets us into Batuu then. And as I said, so then you wake up and you have a slew of new missions on your data pad then that you have to complete on Batuu. And Justin, I'll let you color this in. But then that's what we mean when we say it sort of unfolds Batuu very differently, because you start to really understand what the Rise of the Resistance is all about and what the Millennium Smuggler's Run is all about. Because it's different for you as a passenger on the Starcruiser, because you're there for a very specific reason that will help you on the rest of your journey.
Correct.
Yeah, and so you essentially enter Batuu through a separate entrance than you normally would. You're not going through the main gates of Hollywood Studios. In fact, both times that we went on it, we never saw anything outside of Batuu, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the cool part, is that you have so much to do in Galaxy's Edge on Batuu that you don't need to go anywhere else. And those missions are critical. Patrick made mention that, your Smuggler's Run experience is vastly different. You are stealing coaxium on every time that you go on it, but now you know why. You are stealing it for a reason back on the ship. and it makes that a much richer experience. And being able to interact with Hondo in that space, and the missions that you get on your data pad, you're going to different booths and you're hacking stuff and slicing stuff and doing little puzzles on your data pad to get you to the next part. And so you've got missions from maybe 4 or 5 different people that are vying for your time. And it even includes Oga's Cantina. There's a special mission, if you get selected to do that, where you have to ask for something from one of the chemists there, one of the bartenders, and they'll give you something to scan, and it creates another element, a story experience when you get back on the ship. So there's just so much there. That is more than meets the eye. It's almost equivalent to, I guess, the bounty hunter experience if you were to do that with your Magic Band Plus if you do Galaxy's Edge, but a little bit richer because you're invested in a deeper story.
And also when you you get into what, I mean, it's not really an escape pod, but it's like that. It's a really small thing that like delivers you to Batuu. You're also given a specific pin of the Halcyon to wear on Batuu, and that is how all of the cast members and the characters on Batuu can differentiate you from the rest of the normal crowds that are there. So they also then give you a different experience and will interact with you a little bit differently because they know that you're on missions. And so they may try to talk to you or lead you in different ways. So it's really incredible the way they pulled this all off for you on the Starship.
Yeah, and for anyone who's going upcoming, do not lose that pin.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because they will not give you another one that is your one and only pin. And Patrick had a moment on Smuggler's Run where
he laughed good.
It is so all over the place that it just popped off. But we found it, and he was good. I see your face, Kale's like, oh my God. But we got it. We're good.
It's true.
So day 2, essentially, how long are you in Batuu? Is it a full day experience?
No.
It can be. It depends on what you want to do and how long you want to spend there, right? And so I think about folks that come down to Disney once a year, or this is their only opportunity to go. You can go outside and experience the rest of Hollywood Studios if you want to break the immersion. We chose to not do that. But you can also spend your entire day up until I think 4:00 on Batuu, and you can do missions. You do get a food credit. That's something that we didn't mention, to eat at Galaxy's Edge at Docking Bay 7. So they'll give you a food credit, which includes 1 alcoholic beverage, which is also nice.
Yes.
We wanted to take the route of eating everything we can on the ship. So we actually went back to the ship early to eat lunch, because we're not going to get to experience that food again. I can eat at Docking Bay 7 whenever I go to Galaxy's Edge.
Exactly. Right. No, so we're back on the ship. We've had this great adventure in Batuu. So what activities are currently happening on the ship the evening of day 2?
Drinking.
Perfect. Perfect. That's the most immersive I ever get.
The Sublight Lounge.
The Sublight Lounge. Very much so.
Yeah. I'm glad that we took advantage of going very early to get back to the ship earlier, because the storyline, it doesn't take a pause, but you get sort of a respite. Otherwise, I feel like your brain would break if you were as part of the story for that entire 24-hour day that you are, because that's your one full day on the ship. So you get back and you have lunch. I think we took showers maybe because it was so ungodly hot that day.
I definitely did. The 3 Suns on Batuu were not playing that morning. I was drenched in sweat. Was miserable.
Yeah.
So coming back early was just a godsend.
But then coming back early, you get the experience of having the ship to yourself a little bit for a while. So we did some photo shoots. We went shopping.
Sure. Nice.
I bought everything in that shop.
We bought all the things. And fun fact, so if you are still listening, you're going on the ship, if you do ask somebody at the shop, what was the shop called? I can't remember there's a name for it, but
it's the Chandrilla Collection.
The Chandrilla Collection. There is a secret menu of items that you could purchase of Halcyon only specific pins that you can only get there, and only if you ask for the secret experience for the pins. And so Justin luckily knew that, because he went down the rabbit hole before going on the ship, and we got some special pins. So we did all the things you could do on the ship, and then I highly recommend doing it that way. If you're going on the ship again, I do understand if you've never been to Batuu and this is your one time in Disney World, take advantage. Batuu is amazing. So I get the impulse to want to stay on planet for a while. But anyway, so we had lunch, and then after lunch, again, like the first day, the action slowly starts to ramp up again, where you'll start getting more missions on your phone. And then, I mean, I don't know how the chaos kind of starts to ensue on the ship, because this is when the story explodes all around you, and there are unexpected characters that are popping out of nowhere. It's absolutely incredible. Justin and Jack, how do you want to color that in? I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the other pieces that we kind of glossed over is we went drinking, but we took part in a essentially mixology class in the Sublight Lounge on day 2. And so we had done it the first time and loved our experience, and we love Laura, which was one of our chemists the first time, and she was the one doing this class the second time. Jack ran down on day 1 because there's only like 7 to 10 spots available for this class, and so they do like a highlight of 4 of the drinks that are available, and so you get the drinks and you also get the stories of the drinks and what planets they're from and the toasts that go with them and
everything in universe. It's really cool,
and it's just a neat experience, and it's different depending on what chemist you get to do it, which is also a neat experience.
Yeah, it was oddly emotional, I would say. I mean, part of it was probably because Laura, our chemist, and so by the way, if you're not tracking, a chemist is their version of a bartender because they're mixologists. She was incredible, and the stories that they tell and the toasts that they do, they get really deeply emotional, which we can talk about again more on the as we dive deeper into this. But like the entire experience on the ship, the stories that are unfolding are really deeply rooted in community and in being together as one is sort of the overall mantra on the ship. And so all the stories that you're hearing from a lot of the different characters, including your bartenders, your servers, your the people working at the gift shop, are all in on this message of together as one. And so everything you do has a really community based backstory, which all 3 of us, I think, that's all 4 of us, I guess, on this Zoom, but on the ship are very passionate about that in real life. And so it struck a chord with us where to be honest, I think I cried 4 or 5 times on this trip, just randomly for what seemed really insignificant, but was incredibly significant at the time.
So the bartenders are essentially Smitty from Will and Grace. And
very
then
much that.
You try not to pull the Karen and laugh, right?
Very, very much that. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so the story's full throttle. It's the last day. You wake up, you're probably hungover or still drunk, right? What is the third and final day on the ship like? What's happening? Are there things to do? Are they rushing you out? Walk me through it.
Yeah, for anyone who has experienced a Run Disney weekend, the exhaustion is similar to that, right? You're getting very little sleep. And so day 3, you wake up not quite as early as the day before. You stumble out of bed. You make a decision whether or not you're going to wear something in universe or not. For us, we wore these Forever shirts that we're wearing today. To go off, and you go to breakfast, and there wasn't really a rush to get out. They do have to turn the ship over because the next sailing is happening literally 2 or 3 hours later. And so at some point, I imagine we would be ushered off the ship. But we ate a leisurely breakfast.
Took a few more pictures.
Took way more pictures. The Blue Crew, I think Megan was her name that day, and she took wonderful pictures of us.
She did really
in
good.
All different spots, in the atrium, in the Sublight Lounge, in the bridge, making sure that we had everything that we needed. She took a special one of Stitch. And so like there was it's still the level of top class service up until the moment we left. And so after all of that was said and done, you board that launch pod to get back down to Earth, and we had the launch pod to ourselves that day. And so you hear the Star Wars music again, and then you are just welling up with tears and knowing that you are probably never going to experience this again.
Right.
True. And you get oddly, not oddly, I mean, we're all empathetic people on the Zoom, but connected to everybody on the ship. Like, and I don't mean the other passengers, but some of the other passengers, but mostly the crew that are working there, because they're so good at what they're doing. A couple of them, hi Charles, if you're listening, saw us getting our luggage, and we were taking photos, and he came in and wanted to say goodbye to us. We got like hugs with a lot of the cast members, because you do get invested with them as well. They're playing with you too, and they, depending on how much you interact with them, they'll remember you and like give you a little extra magic if they're able to. So a shout out to the entire crew on the Halcyon, because they were incredible. And it was sad to say goodbye to them, really and truly. I know you're only there for 48 hours or whatever it is, but you get really, really connected to all of the characters and all of the crew members. So it's a unique experience that way, I would say.
We were feeling pretty good. We did close the Sublight Lounge down the night before. we were ushered out of there for sure. They turned up the lights. We're like, all right, everybody, last call. I got to go home. Yeah. So I don't think we were expecting that, but we were having a good time, and there was lots to see, lots of good people watching and interaction with just strangers and making friends and
people we've interacted with for the last 2 days, right? And so, other passengers that we've communicated with and made connections with, and not everyone, but there's a lot of passengers who are so deeply involved that are handing out various things, little trinkets and tokens and credits and stickers and crystals and handkerchiefs. Like there's just necklaces that we got. Shout out to Kelly for doing that. But yeah, there's just so many things that kept us in that Sublight Lounge super late.
Right.
Agreed.
So it sounds, fully submersive. A lot going on. People, cast members. Tell me about the fandom on the ship. Is it cohesive? Is it canon?
That's a good question. We had this conversation of like, is the trip on the Halcyon experience Star Wars canon now? And right. I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, you two, but I think the answer is yes, that it is now going to be part of the story, because you do, again, we're fully disclosing things. The timeline in which this happens, right, is a very specific timeline in the Star Wars history, in which it's after The Last Jedi, but right before the last movie,
Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker. So it happens right in between those two films. So much so that Rey makes an appearance, more than an appearance, makes an epic explosion onto the ship. It's really incredible, her storyline on it. And if you talk to her enough, like, she knows the backstory of what has already happened and what's about to happen, but she's very specific about what this mission and what this journey is and what's happening on the ship. So there's a whole, Dustin, you can talk about this, and Jack, rabbit hole that you can go down with the fandom,
Sure.
Specifically with people who have done the excursions before.
Yeah, I would argue it is very much canon.
Fair.
Myself, Jack, and Patrick are now part of the Star Wars story. We are canon, and I truly believe that, right? And so, much like Galaxy's Edge also takes place in that timeline of between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, they've mirrored the experience so that everything is together as one. Sure, we'll use that line again, but it is so deep rooted into what it means to be a Star Wars fan. And so I think that there's a mix of emotions and a mix of thoughts in what it means to be a Star Wars fan from the original movies to Star Wars fan from the episode 1 through 3 to the new Disney-fied versions of Star Wars that have come out as of late. And so this obviously takes place in the latter. And there's a whole slew of people that love this universe as it is now. And there's a whole slew of people that do not, right? They do not love the Disney Star Wars universe. But it is very much canon, and you are part of that story. And it continues on. Rey, makes some different comments and commentary about, going back to what she needs to do that sets up Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
And so it is very much there. And you're living it and you're breathing it.
Yeah, a lot of the naysayers of this experience, that is part of the reason why, is that it's not taken from the original movies. And your super fans, a lot of your super fans are, of that age range, right? Who grew up with this and are like, hey, why didn't we do it from the earlier films rather than these? And so, hate the player, not the game. I mean, you can't not respect the amount of effort that has gone into this experience. I mean, there's no other experience like this that I've ever experienced, that Justin's ever experienced. I mean, there's nothing like it out there right now. And surely there will be something like it again. I mean, the idea will catch on, but yeah, you can't hate the whole experience simply because of when the storyline takes place.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling, right? Like I have said this several times. I have never had an emotional connection to what others would perceive as just a building, right? And so this space, like I am flabbergasted at that piece. I'm like, I love the experience. I love the cast. I love the crew. I love the passengers who are there to play. And I've said this before, it gives not only children, but adults a place to play. And as adults, you don't often get that. And I think that's a really cool experience and a safe experience and we're not LARPers. We don't LARP in our daily lives. We are not cosplayers. But this experience opened that up. And I'm not saying that we're going to do that, but in this world, in this environment, that everything is so carefully curated, it makes sense and it's believable and it's emotional and it's connectedness. And it's just a magical experience.
Yeah. I would just close out that sentiment is that like as a fan and into the fandom, this definitely amplified my fandom of Star Wars for sure. It gave me a connection that I wouldn't otherwise have had. Like it strangely makes me watch The Rise of Skywalker differently because in my head, right, in my imagination, you're like, oh, Rey was just on the Halcyon right before she went and did that. Now, like if I think about it that way, it's not necessarily baked into that movie, but why it is for me.
Could be,
yeah, it is for me. And maybe I'll watch it again and go, maybe they did integrate a couple of things that, who knows? You have to really, there might be some Easter eggs within that movie that they integrated onto the ship. Who knows? Yes. But it's pretty cool.
Well, and there are books around, Princess and Scoundrel is one where Han and Leia's honeymoon takes place aboard the Halcyon. And so it is naturally canon in that regard, and you see even on the ship their initials are engraved in the engineering room. And so it is very much rich in that history as well.
Well, Justin, I will say if that was the first time you've ever had an emotional connection to a building, you've obviously never visited Atlanta and gone to Swinging Richards. But moving on, so what are some highlights that each of you enjoyed, and then what's an improvement that each of you would make?
Good question. Who wants to go first?
Like an improvement that Disney should make on the experience, an improvement that I would make owning my own experience.
An improvement, Disney. You don't make mistakes, baby. Yeah, right. An improvement that Disney would make.
You're making assumptions, which I don't appreciate. I think everyone will agree. We've talked about this, but Disney missed a mark with the marketing. People did not know what it was. It was too easy to dismiss and to hate on it because it was so expensive that it seemed like it was, only for an elite. And it is true. It is a lot of money to pay for an experience. We thought that it was worth it, given now that we've done the experience. We recognize how much money it took to go into something like that. It's unfortunate that it does have to cost that much, but it just was not marketed as that. So everyone thought this is just a hotel. So I'm spending all this money just to go stay at a hotel. Why would I do that when I can go somewhere else and get a better experience elsewhere on Disney property? But for me, one of the special things was, and we talked about this too during our experience, that this trip for us, there were a lot more kids, and it's cool to watch that experience through sort of a child's eyes, right? And watching them interact, but certainly there were some kids there that appeared to just have some different needs and some different needs for their attention, and the cast and the crew handled that exceptionally well, and it was magical just to watch that and watch the characters take extra time to make a special experience for someone who is experiencing this in a very different way, right? So that to me was very cool just to see. It was kind of a behind the scenes thing, but that also brought tears to my eyes a couple of times just watching those interactions.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, and in response to that, it's funny because I couldn't agree more with your improvement to the marketing, right? I as a matter of fact, Patrick asked me earlier, how familiar are you with this when we go into it? And I was like, I'm the perfect person to ask these questions because as much content as I've seen, I don't know anything about it, right? I don't know what it looks like when you step onto it. And so I do feel like there was definitely a mark missed when it came to letting people know that this was a full-blown experience. This was not a Disney hotel, right? It was not a resort. And so completely agree.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with the marketing. They definitely missed the mark on that. And I'll highlight the not elephant in the room because we've already talked about it. It's the price. And that's the one improvement that I think it's hard, right? And so having done the experience, I don't know how they could have made it much cheaper because there is so much into this space, between the technology that's used, having to pay the cast, having to pay the crew, the upkeep, the costumes, the food, the experiences on Batuu, there's the overall experience itself. It costs a lot of money to run. And so I don't know how they would have done it much cheaper, but I think that I would have tried to find a way to save it, right? And so they started rolling out discounts to pass holders and DVC members and Disney Visa card holders earlier on in the year. And that's, we took advantage of that the first time, which was amazing. And then that went away and then the closure was announced. And so I think that some more of that would have helped because to Jack's point about the marketing, use the people that have experienced it to be your marketing. Having the conversations with Patrick leading up to it, I didn't want to spoil any story beats and I wanted to give him the opportunity to ask logistical questions as much as he wanted to, but trying to explain it to someone who hasn't done it is tough, but it's doable. And being able to do that and really have your guests sell that experience with a little bit more time would have worked because this community is huge. I am in Facebook groups regarding the Starcruiser. I've watched tons of YouTube videos, listened to tons of podcasts. The community is growing and growing and growing, and it's going to stop. And the fear of that community piece just ending for a lot of those people is scary. And so that's, the price, the marketing, I would change it in a heartbeat. Let's talk about a little bit more positive. And this is going to go into probably some spoilers, but the cast is just truly incredible. They take such good care of the characters and such good care of the passengers. They know your name. They know how much you want to be involved. Patrick mentioned it earlier. You can be as involved as you want or not as much so. It is the perfect playground for extroverts, the perfect playground for introverts, and perfect playground for everyone in between. And the cast are able to navigate that just based on your body language, based on how you're presenting yourself, how you're interacting with them. And so having gone on it twice, knowing the story beats, you get a little bit of a leg up, but not so much as you want to monopolize the experience away from other people. And so just being able to make eye contacts with certain characters gets you into that story a little bit more. And so I have done the same storyline twice, and I wouldn't change that for the world. The smuggler storyline is by far one of my favorite things about the ship. Because when you get on board, you meet this character named Wraith, whether it's through your data pad or he's just kind of looming around and you have no idea really his intentions.
I do. I knew a Wraith, and I knew his intentions.
Fair enough. You don't know his intentions and what he wants to do on the ship, and so he really wants to steal something, and you have to make that decision whether you want to be a part of it or not. And in the first experience, Jack was a little bit hesitant of whether or not he wanted to be a part of this smuggling group, right? And so, I think that I don't know if that cost us anything, but I think our hesitance in playing, because you don't know everything, you don't know what's happening, you get a little bit different experience. The second time, I was all in. Wraith and I were like that, together as one.
And that was my question for Wraith. What are your intentions with my husband? What is your intention here? No, you want to follow. Yeah, I wasn't sure that I wanted to follow that storyline. I wanted to follow him.
Yeah. We left.
Hang out.
We left bridge training. He grabs me by the back of the neck and says, "You're mine now, baby." And from that moment on, I was invested in his storyline and everything that he was doing. I was part of his inner circle, and we've not talked about Gaia, but Gaia is the intergalactic superstar who does the dinner show on the first night, and she's on board. She is a Twi'lek, and so he is essentially her manager. And we were involved in, I know I'm very long-winded in this response, but
no,
we were involved on the second day in this heist that the rest of the ship may not have even known what was going on. But those people who were part of that storyline knew exactly what was happening. And you're essentially stealing, again, spoiler, the Hyananea stone, which is so much a part of Gaia's story. And to her people, this stone is important to the freedom for her people, which connects you so much more into what that story is and what it means to her, to Wraith, and you realize that he is there for good and not necessarily just for himself, part of it for himself, but also part of it good for the freedom of these people. And it just parallels to what a lot of people, that we surround ourselves with are trying to do in the world, right? And so it just speaks to you, and that's one of the moments that are forever going to be ingrained in my memory when we're in that cargo hold and the Hyananea stone is in the hands and given to Gaia, and she's crying, and everyone else in the room is crying, and I'm crying for the 18th time. It's just magical.
Well, very nice. That's awesome. So, Patrick, Justin did use up all of your time.
Great.
So I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. I'll start with the high, because I think mine is just going to build on what both Justin and Jack said. But I think just when I look at the whole experience from a level of empathy in how the story unfolded, the entire my takeaway from the entire experience on the Galactic Starcruiser was that Disney curated an empathetic journey for everybody, right? Regardless of who you were, where you were coming from, whether or not you were somebody with special needs, you were taken care of the entire time. They understood. It was like almost a psychological experiment that they were doing with all of us, because they just took care of you. You never wanted for anything. And when I say that, I don't mean like a cup of coffee. That's also true, though. You could just ask for it and it would appear out of nowhere. But whatever you needed emotionally, if you needed to step away, they can read that on you. And they were like, cool, we need to give that guy some space. We need to give that kid a little extra attention, because this is going to help everyone else's journey as well. Integrated into all of that, also, the whole storyline is about empathy. And I talked about a little bit already about shared community and shared spaces. And we're all in this together. So much so that at the end, I'm going to start getting emotional. At the end of the entire experience, there were some people who chose the First Order side, right? And we all kind of know what that allegory is within the Star Wars world of the resistance of the First Order. It's very much prevalent here in our lives of one party over another politically. And they recognize that, and they call that out, and they don't shun you for having followed that part of the story. They do. The captain, I think I'm going to get it wrong a little bit, but comes out and says, some of you did follow the First Order and we're helping them the entire time. We're not mad at you. We get it. Tyrants happen, and their job is to pull you in. And now our job now is to say, that's okay. Here's a different way of looking at it. we don't want to change you. We want to be with you. How can we do that? How can we come together? And that is such a powerful message that so many people needed to hear. Maybe people on that ship that day, but Disney, I'm crying already. Disney knew what they were doing. They made this experience for inclusivity's sake, and everyone was included the entire time, top to bottom. So that's where I leave it for my highlight of what they did well. And then just to address the marketing point, I totally agree. The marketing could have used some help. And I don't know the price-wise where they would have pulled the lever to Justin and Jack's, both of their points. Do you take away from the elevated food? Do you take away from the elevation of the incredible caliber of acting on this ship? Because these people are professionals. This is a Broadway show happening around you that you're involved with. So to say that it's too expensive, well, yes, it is. It does price a lot of people out of doing it. You do have to consider that you're paying professional actors to be with you for 3 days, right? to babysit adults and children for 3 days. Right. So imagine that tab as a babysitter, right? And then imagine the tab of, this is not just good Disney food. This is good food at any restaurant that you would expect good food from, right? This isn't good accommodations for a hotel. It's good accommodations anywhere. So I don't know where you pull the lever of what gets cut. So I don't know but that's where I would make the improvement of like explaining to the world what this actually is and why it costs what it costs.
Right. So do we think that Disney made the right decision in closing down this experience after only a year?
Just right for whom, right? So I mean, clearly, from a business model, it wasn't making enough money to make sense. But I don't know what went behind that decision. But I don't think it was for any other reason, like someone complained or it's not people aren't liking it. Everyone that we've heard from overwhelmingly, the people that went on the experience enjoyed it. I mean, so much so that we would sacrifice other stuff that needs to be done around the house to go again because we knew that it wasn't going to be available soon. So I don't know that it was wrong decision. I wish they would not have made that decision, but
I think that they pulled the trigger a little bit early, right? And didn't give it enough time to figure out what they can do to make it a little bit more profitable. Because the announcement of the closure happened so abruptly. And at that point, they were already booked through December, right? And so the last journey is September 28th through the 30th. And they had to rebook everyone from October to December into the remaining 4 months, close new bookings for a week. And then, we sat on the phone for 5.5 hours on that last day to be able to book, to be able to get something. So the demand was there. You had people that were saving up the money to be able to do this experience 2-3 years down the line that either had to speed that up or no longer have that opportunity to. So I would argue that I would say they made a mistake in closing it, but they made a mistake in closing it too early is what I think.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think everyone's an armchair expert on this, right? And I mean, even on the ship and leading up to the ship, everyone has an opinion of what went wrong, what went right financially. And so who knows? Disney's never going to tell us, and that's fine. I mean, that's their prerogative. That's part of the magic that we maybe just don't need to know what the reasons were. So I want to believe that Disney made the right decision for Disney. They clearly didn't make the right decision for the fans who really love this Galactic Starcruiser, because it just eliminates something that we all fell in love with, really and truly have a connection with. But I will say what makes it special now is that we're one of few who had the opportunity to do this. And, all of us are gay men without children. So we do have a little bit of, a different budget than a lot of people do necessarily, because we're not spending it on children. So, it's everyone has a wildly different place in which they come from. And this is just our story of our experience, and we cannot speak for everybody.
Yeah. And it definitely opened up to the possibility of what could be, right? Like this experience, I think, is potentially ahead of its time. But if this is what the future could look like in an immersive experience, we're in for a treat if they continue. Now, I don't know if Disney's going to go into it super quickly after this, but futuristically, we have some exciting stuff to look forward to.
Well, others will do it. It was really surprisingly cool. And that's the tough part about the marketing, like how you don't want to spoil the experience, but you want people to know what it is. Like, but I went into it knowing that I wanted to be in awe over something. And I was like, it is murder mystery meets escape room. And I am
meets dinner theater
escape room person. I bought in as soon as I realized that's what was happening. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in it to win it at this point. And so,
yeah,
it's a cool way to experience something in a way that we had never done before.
Okay, so $1 million question. We know that there has been some controversial opinions and discussions over the price of this. What are your thoughts, and was it worth the price?
Worth the price. I would like not to have paid that price, but it was worth the price.
Right.
Yeah, it's double-edged sword, right? We thought of it the first time as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we, to Jack's point, had no idea that we would love it as much. And we were bought in instantly, so much so as soon as we got off, like the first time, we wanted to go back, and we were determined to make that happen. We thought it was going to be next year or the year after that.
Save up a little bit,
give some time to let the experience sink in, but hey, Disney had different thoughts, so it was 2 months later, and it was just as rich, it was just as impactful the second time. I would do it again if it wasn't closing and if my wallet
right now, what baby wants, baby gets, right? Except no, baby also needs an air conditioning that works. So let's think about that.
I mean, we laugh, but these are real life examples.
No, it absolutely is true.
Yeah. I mean, just to build on that, I mean, I feel like, so I think that's a personal question that everyone needs to ask themselves, right? I'll start it by saying Disney does need to offer more affordable options that are near this level that everybody can access.
Correct.
I would love to see that. That's the perfect world that we all want to journey towards, right? That being said, ask yourself, all of you listeners at home and all of us on the Zoom, like, what would you pay for 6 gourmet meals, right? An endless supply of food throughout the day, throughout your entire experience. Tack on top of that, a 2-night experience at a 5-star hotel. Tack on top of that, Broadway level entertainment for 48 hours. Tack on top of that, next level service beyond all of that. An amazing bar experience, a trip to Batu, just a once in a lifetime unique experience. Really add those numbers up, and I think it does come close to the price tag that they were offering.
Absolutely.
When you consider how much we should be paying really good actors, how much we should be paying really good service. So I don't know. You really have to ask yourself those questions, and so I would leave that to all of our Tweedles to answer on their own, as opposed to giving a definitive answer for myself.
Yeah, and I've heard this around, and I've said it myself, is allow people to have the fandom, right? And so everyone has the thing that they're passionate about. You know, there are people who are willing to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go to the Super Bowl, or $1,000 to go to a Taylor Swift concert, and those are limited time experiences that are going to be 3 to 4 hours tops. We got an experience that was 42, 48 hours, depends on how you cut it with sleep time and all of that. But it turns out to be cheaper than those experiences in some spaces. So allow people to have the fandoms that they're passionate about. And that's what makes the experience worth the price tag.
Absolutely. Okay, so this with this one we can get a little bit creative. We can be fun, we can be serious, but what is going to happen to this place now that Starcruiser is gone?
Ooh, and well, Kale, this is a good segue because we do have a bunch of listener questions as well. So
yes. Can
I connect your question to one of our listener connections? Because
yes, do it.
This is one we get super often as well, and we had at ADV Parker also. So tacking onto that question, if this type of experience could return with a different IP, it's kind of the same question. What story would you like to see? So Not Disney, Jack.
Not Disney. No,
You're forgetting the podcast you're on.
Oh my God. I mean, you could do this Marvel. I mean, you could do this any other type of Star Wars. I mean, that any of those, the concept of the immersion with any story would be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I would be down for it. Sorry,
Yeah.
I jumped in before you were done with the question. I got excited.
You jumped in and stole all of the IPs.
Yep. So that's it. Thanks for joining us. No,
that's it. Thanks,
Justin. Anything? What about you?
No, I think Jack's right. I would definitely turn it into something Marvel. The space itself lends itself to space, right? And so thinking about what you could do with that, it could be something Toy Story if you really wanted to in a Buzz Lightyear lens. You could be Avengers, you could be Incredibles, you can do mixed stories and change it out. I don't know what they're going to do with the space. That's a hot button topic in the community and what it's going to look like. I do think, going back to the money piece and the experience overall, you could, have it just be a dinner theater that is you transport from Batu and enjoy the Gaia dinner show. But I think as you start to piece away from the experience of Galactic Starcruiser as a whole, you start diminishing what that experience was and what it means to so many people. And so I wouldn't piece it apart too much. You would have to make it a completely different experience.
Yeah, fair enough. I would actually, I think about this a little bit. It could be an interesting dive into if you use original Disney IP of like something with the Adventurers or the Explorers Club, right? And tying in those stories together could be an interesting immersive experience and something very unique to Disney that no one else has.
Right. Well, you think about, I mean, the building was built for this story and the technology that was put in there. They spent a lot of money on that technology. Hell, there was technology that we've never seen before. And we're like, whoa, how does that happen? Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're completely blown away. So
we didn't even talk about holograms or lightsabers or anything like that. But
I mean,
oh my God.
Next level.
What else can they do with it that's not on? I mean, they'd have to spend a lot of money to get to refurbish it, right? And it's why would you do that when it's already set up for that story?
Yeah, what if they like Tiki Room style it and it's Star Cruiser under new management and like Stitch is causing havoc in the
my gosh. Yeah. Justin would be there in a heartbeat.
Part of me loves that. Part of me is like, oh goodness. Tiki Room for 48 hours may be a bit much.
That's a lot to ask.
Tiki Room for 2 minutes that's an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
But okay, so as Patrick said, we do have some listener questions. So at Andy Heath Puppeteer, as a droid fan, how often and how much interaction do you get with the SK620?
Great question. So to start that, so SK620 is the main droid that's on the ship, and imagine an R2D2. Except for it's a different character altogether and plays a huge part of the experience. And again, it's part of that. And you guys, I don't want to jump in and monopolize the answer, but it's as much interaction as you want or as little as you want. There is a part of the story where he's gone for a while, but once he is out, that was one of the pieces where Justin and Jack are going to laugh at me, where I was like, you guys, I don't know how this is happening. Like SK is talking to me and is responding to me and is moving around as though it's a real droid. And I was just completely, and maybe we won't ruin the magic on this one because it's kind of the answer is it's the simplest answer you could think of. This is the answer to that question, but it was absolutely incredible, and I think I'm the same height as SK as well, so that was fun.
You stuffed your socks.
Yep.
SK is one of the first characters that you see when stuff starts happening on day one, and so SK emerges from like the launch pod area, and it's a really neat experience to see a full working droid just moving around and interacting with people. But I will tell you that SK is very particular about who SK and SK does identify as they for everyone who is listening.
Yeah.
SK is very particular about who they interact with, and so
not without their permission.
You need to ask permission before you scan your M-band onto SK, which unlocks other pieces of the story. And SK is part of Lenka Mock, who's the cruise director, part of her storyline. And you go, he's around, you hide him, they're around, they hide. And so it's a lot of movement.
There's a lot of interaction with the droid. It's an astromech droid. Patrick, please come on. And so there is a lot of interaction with that droid. It is fascinating.
Nice. Okay, moving on. At Saul Bassist, did you eat the blue shrimp? And he didn't ask this, but I will ask, how was it?
Yes, is the answer.
Everyone paused for like, what do we say? No, we did eat the blue shrimp. There was a story behind it. It was part of sort of the story and one of the characters' home planets. It tastes like shrimp. It was not like shrimp that had been like marinating in blue milk or anything like that. So it was just blue shrimp.
Yeah. Short answer. We ate it both times and loved it both times.
Yeah. It is really good. It's one of those. It's on night 2 of your stay. They do this really extraordinary, actually, dinner service where you're sort of eating around the galaxy. So every planet is represented by your next course. And if you're sitting at the captain's table that night, you get synchronized service, which is really unique to see. And it's great. The chefs come out and explain everything, and blue shrimp is part of it. And it's delicious. I mean, it doesn't just taste like frozen grocery store shrimp. It's like elevated. Gourmet,
and they're massive shrimp.
They're huge. Yeah.
At Sean Cruz, how gay friendly was it?
And I thought about this earlier. We were talking about the community and inclusion and that kind of stuff. We always felt in place. I never felt concerned or let's what's our storyline? If people ask us if we're together, all that kind of stuff. Like it felt very inclusive. All of especially the staff and the characters leaned into that. In fact, I think it even enhanced our storyline. I think we made a connection with certain folks and certain crew members because of it. That was never an issue. In fact, like I said, I think it almost made it a little bit more special for me personally.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think that there's always the off chance, like, cast and crew, phenomenal job. Never felt that it wasn't gay friendly, but there's always a chance with passengers that it could turn into not. And we never felt that on either voyage. I think that, everyone welcomed us. Everyone interacted with us. Everyone gave us trinkets and tokens and credits and all the stuff. And we met, other gay couples on the ship as well. And so there were a lot of people who identified, and it was great to be able to experience that with them. And even the folks that didn't were accepting of everybody that was on board.
Well, and I think Disney does a great job of just immediately hitting you over the head with the message of together as one. Like, they set you up for success when it comes to inclusivity on the ship. Like, regardless of what your background is, who you're with, who you represent, they are not shy to say, here's where we are. We're in an environment where everyone is welcome. So I have to believe that had there been an instance, it would have been taken care of immediately. Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. At Dinko Direct, which characters did y'all flirt with? Be honest, and we want details.
Justin,
do you want to answer that question?
Justin, I think that question was directed at you.
I don't know that I plead the fifth. I think that I flirted with a lot of people to help my storyline progress.
Same.
Whether that was Lenka Mock initially, I got to put the ship into hyperspace, which is a core memory that I will have from the experience, right? Like, I don't know that I'll ever be able to do that again. And it was amazing.
Justin worked it. I will give him credit.
I was working every single room that I was in, so much so that some of the passengers were like, how are you everywhere that I am? And I'm like, I just, I make connections, and I enjoyed talking with Saja Dax, and I enjoyed talking with Wraith. And Wraith is very much a character that is all over the place in general. And if you are in good with him, you're in good.
Very, very charismatic.
Yeah.
And all of the characters are very handsy as well, which we think ties into how they interact with you and some of the behind the scenes magic. But there is a lot of rubbing of the shoulder. So you feel very, very, you're like, you feel very, very included and very special.
Yeah. It's hard. It's almost hard. Like if you're someone who can interact with people and does it with ease, it's hard not to flirt with people on the ship just because it's not necessarily like a sexual thing. Although some characters I was like, how do I find you after the ship lands? But I mean, they're just all they're all very charismatic actors as well, and which makes them beautiful people as well, which makes you want to be a part of their story. And so there are definitely many characters I wish I had gotten in better with because they were just engaging people, and it's their job, right? They know that they're enticing you, they're welcoming it, and they want you to be a part of it. So flirting happens so naturally on the show.
I just need to let you know that I'm glad that you added the because for a split second I did think that you said characters I wish I had gotten in bed with.
Right?
Yeah,
I had betted.
My heart dropped for a second.
Listen,
no.
You hear what you wanted to hear, and it's accurate.
Yeah, I would argue that the actors and characters flirted with us initially, and so that was super helpful.
Listen, you know what? People in space, they love a gay. Like all this I guess warning stuff with the aliens currently. I'm not worried. I know they're taking me home. They're taking care of me.
Yeah, they're so nice. Yeah, in our experience, everyone has been so welcoming.
Yeah, so accommodating.
Right. Well, so thank you so much. This has been awesome getting to learn about the Galactic Starcruiser and discuss what in just a few short weeks what will be what was.
It's true. Actually, before we do sign off, I had surprise, 2 more questions come in that weren't. Is it okay if we read those real quick? I know we've taken
absolutely
up so much of your guys' time, but
these are the deep questions. Like, what is your deepest fear as it relates to the core character?
That's right. That's right. Are you guys way over on time, or do you have time to answer 2 more questions?
Who, us?
You two, yeah.
We got nothing but you today.
Perfect. Well,
I'll answer nothing.
Okay, great. Okay, so this first one is also coming from Adventures with Parker, asking, did you encounter any guests who were unenthusiastic about the experience? Example, they didn't want to suspend their disbelief and play along with the story, and if so, how did the cast members and actors deal with that? That's an interesting question.
That is a very good question. I'll answer from my experience.
Yeah.
Justin knows this too, because I complained to him about it. Not people who were uninterested in being there, but very interested in stealing the spotlight and making it more about them, or being a little cynical, right? So like I will, I'm going to make a heckle type joke or whatever, right? And that was more of what was irritating. If you did not want to interact, then again, they did not, like you said, they did not interact with you and they just sort of left you alone. But it was those that were trying to steal the spotlight, and the characters did a great job of like, hey, I need something from behind the counter over there. Why don't you just run on over there and grab that for us to leave the rest of us alone for just a second. So they did a good job of like sort of taking back the spotlight where it was due.
Yeah, I co-sign that statement. What about you, Justin?
No, I also co-sign that statement. I think that especially in these last voyages, you don't have anyone on there that doesn't want to be there, right? And so these are the people that are trying to get their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever time they're going on the Starcruiser, that experience, they are all in for the entirety of the ship. The only time I think that you run into it is children sometimes. Obviously, their attention span isn't always
true,
lengthy, and so you'll run into some children that are like, you know what, I'm done, and I'm just gonna start screaming. And we ran into that. And I think the first time that, we were in the finale and this kid could not be bothered.
He was like,
and it's so cool to watch everything happening around you. But he's like, I'm done.
It's like, it's past my bedtime. This is way beyond my comfort zone.
And that's why we don't have children.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize, by the way, for that. I was about
to say, what happened? You give him sugar? You gave Patrick some sugar?
Right. Play the game on your phone and just relax.
They gave me sugar after 8 p.m. and that never ends well for anybody. Okay, and so our last question then is from one of our Patreon members, Juan, who is also on Instagram at Jedi Trousers, saying, I'm curious to know what it was like for a casual Star Wars fan. Patrick, I believe you've said you like it, but you're not super into Star Wars, so ignore the question if that's not accurate. No, we already addressed that. I am a casual fan. But did it feel immersive and exciting, like you've stepped into another galaxy, or did it mostly just feel silly and bonkers? I think we kind of covered that, and in that I think we can all agree that it was 100% immersive and accurate. And I mean, bonkers situations happened, but it wasn't to a level where like it brought you out of it. You weren't like, well, this wouldn't ever. I mean, you were just invested the entire time, from my point of view anyways.
I would 100% agree. I don't think that there was ever a time where I felt like I had to be conscious about suspending my belief, because they do such a good job pulling you into the story and making you a part of it, that nothing felt silly. Having a conversation with Wani, who's a Rhodian in this costume, that her mouth is moving, but she's speaking in Huttese. And you can understand everything that Jack's making a face because he's like, how do you know that? I just do.
He's a bigger fan than me now.
That, you know exactly what she's saying by her body language, and you know exactly how to interact with her. It just happens naturally. So the suspension of belief is just automatic.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And we talked about this a little bit while we were there. Not once, and this is maybe the first time in years, I would say, did I think about work? Did I think about what's going on at home? Did I think about anything else? I was invested in this.
You were in it.
You had no time. You
don't have time. But the entire time, no time was I like, I wish I was at home playing video games. Like, never. It was, I want this to go on for several more days. That's how exciting and fun it is. All right. Well, okay. With that, now, Kale, you can kick them out because you're done.
I already did. I'm not doing it again. No. Thank you guys, Justin and Jack, so much for joining us today. This has been a true treat. Thank you.
No, thank you for having us. We are obviously excited to talk about Starcruiser to anyone who will listen to us for as long as you two have. So we definitely appreciate it, and wish we could talk about it many more times, but obviously there's an endpoint to this one.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's true. Well, it was well worth the wait, though. We had planned on recording earlier, but life and schedules got in the way. But it was worth waiting.
I'm sorry.
Kale got in the way. But no, thank you both for coming on. And Tweedles at home, if you have additional questions that we did not answer, or if you have comments because you've been on the Starcruiser, or if you have comments and you haven't been on the Starcruiser, send it our way. You can reach out to us on Instagram at GDTD Podcast, or you can send us a voice memo or an email at info@gaysdothed.com.
Yes, please do that, unless it's a little wordy. Save it.
Then save it. Save it for another day. We didn't talk about Sammy. Sammy, that's one that I wish I could have flirted with more, you guys. Sammy, the maintenance guy. Ooh-wee. The mechanic. Nice. Yeah, I wanted to tease him. Is that what the message was?
We're gonna Huttese.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's a language somewhere. It's a language Sammy and I have, is teasing each other. It's so dumb.
You're a mess.
Thank you. Hey, Kale.
Hey, Patrick.
I just started following her on Instagram, and I don't know if I'm regretting it or not.
Listen, we could take a deep dive into this, but the children are going to come for it.
It's true. Listen, I'm woman forward, and anyone gets to express however they want to express themselves. But have you heard there's a theory out there that AI is actually running her Instagram account, and it's not actually her, but there's just an algorithm that's doing it.
Yep, I have heard this.
I'm like, you know what? If that were the truth, I would believe it. I'd be like, oh, well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all over the map. It's wild.
I know.
It's wild. Well, okay, what are we here for? We're here for a quick D. Oh, also, thank you again, Justin and Jack, for being on the show. It was such a fun conversation.
It really was. I love them. They're probably my best friends.
Good for you. You know what? Well done. Well done for you. You know, you should be so lucky. And I'm hoping, Kale, I'm hoping so much. So this, full disclosure, this was the first time we ever used Zoom to record a guest on the show. So
we're being innovative, guys.
Well, boy, oh boy, do I not know if it worked or not until I started.
Oh no!
I have no idea until I start editing. So you might be listening to nothing on this episode. Okay, we'll find out. All right, so we're here for Quick D. Are you ready, Kale, for some Quick D?
I am ready for Quick D.
So ready. We've crowdsourced once again into our Instagram accounts, and we have at Stevachu asking who is the gayest Disney character in your opinion? Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, Disney. Who's the gayest one?
Okay, the gayest.
Yeah, who's real gay? Percy comes to mind.
I was literally Percy. Percy is pretty gay. Kind
of any of the background characters in Pocahontas are pretty gay.
Yep. Also, if we need a main character, like main character gay energy, I'm going to say Kuzco.
Sure. Kuzco is giving us. Yeah.
Kuzco.
I like that. Kuzco. That's a good one. I like that one. What about a female? Is there like a strong female gay? I mean, Yzma. I'm not gonna lie.
Yzma. I mean, there's also the Elsa theories.
The Elsa, yeah.
The Elsa theories.
I like that.
We also have Moana, who was on a raft with The Rock and tried nothing. So, you know what I mean?
I mean, I was going to make a really inappropriate joke, but she has also full access to that rooster and nothing, a big old.
Very true. Yeah.
That's gross. That's terrible.
No, you're leaving that in. If you leave half you have to.
That's what he said. Okay, so should we do one more question? So there's
let's
a lot
do
of
one
gay
more
characters in Disney history. Okay, so
I'm going to say I actually would argue all of them are gay.
Every Disney character is gay.
All of them.
Okay. All right. Everyone is gay. And then we have Hibdonde, not Hobby-Donde, but Hibdonde.
Yep, Hibdonde.
Asking us, have you seen or are you going to see any of the Disney 100 theatrical re-releases in theaters this year? I haven't seen any of them out in theaters. In fact, I don't think any of them have hit my local theaters yet.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's happening here yet either. But I mean, I would love to. Sure.
It's true. Is there a Disney movie, whether or not it's on the 100 list, that you would love to see again in movie theaters or see at all for the first time in movie theaters?
So I always thought, I really did like the live action Mulan, but because it was released in the height of COVID, I always sort of thought that would have been an incredible movie to have seen live in theater. So I know that that's probably not one that would be re-released for Disney 100, right? But if it were ever to get re-released, I think it would be nice to go and see that one in theaters for sure.
Mulan, also Soul, same story.
Oh, Soul, yeah, absolutely.
Never had a theatrical release.
No, Luca. I didn't see Luca in theaters. Yeah,
these would be good ones. Okay. This was the least funny quick D we've ever had in our lives, and I think that's fine.
Let's pull one more question.
Well, that's all we had from our listeners, because our listeners they failed us, really. I think.
What, you guys don't like comedy? Is that the problem?
At least by the time we started recording, no one else had submitted.
They think just because we're really cute that we can't be funny, and they were like, "We're not even gonna try."
Not one person has ever thought that about me, but I appreciate you including me in that.
Well, had I not, it just would have been rude. So,
it's true. It's very true. I do find you very unfunny. That's true.
Okay. All right.
What?
Well.
What? That's all we have time today on this episode of Gays Do the D. Am I doing the outro? I don't even know anymore. My brain is fried.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
I like that that's your only way out. You have no segues. No. You're just like, and goodbye. That's you at a party, isn't it?
It's absolutely no. It's me at a party. It's me at work at 9:30 a.m. Yeah.
Perfect. And bye.
Bye. That will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussions. Continue the conversation after this episode on Instagram and Twitter at GDTD Podcast. Submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See you real soon.